Welcome to the channel. The Vietnam War, one of the most controversial and brutal conflicts in history. While many know the headlines of the Tet Offensive, the fall of Saigon, what about the moments of sheer brutality that history rarely talks about? The current war on terror, the Vietnam War. Today we're uncovering the forgotten moments that will change how you view this tragic war. The moments that, despite their shocking reality, never made it into the history books. Let's start with one of the most harrowing aspects of the Vietnam War, the booby traps. While many know about the terrifying landmines, what history often overlooks are the twisted traps designed to cause maximum pain and suffering. Soldiers weren't just fighting an enemy, they were fighting the land itself. Punji sticks, sharp bamboo spikes hidden in shallow pits, were one of the most gruesome forms of warfare used by the Viet Cong. But these weren't just traps designed to kill. They were designed to maim, leaving soldiers in unimaginable agony before they were even able to fight back. Then there were the massacre villages. As US forces escalated their efforts, there were entire villages that were left destroyed, with no mercy given. Most people know about the infamous My Lai massacre, but what many don't realize is that similar atrocities took place across the country. Small villages targeted and wiped off the map, their populations decimated. Soldiers, under orders to clear out suspected Viet Cong hideouts, would sometimes target civilians in the most horrific ways. Entire families were killed, leaving behind only the echoes of their screams. These massacres didn't just happen in My Lai. They were scattered across the war-torn countryside, but the stories of those victims were buried. Next, let's talk about the use of Agent Orange. While the chemical warfare on the battlefield is widely known, the lasting effects of Agent Orange are often forgotten in the history books. Used by the US military to deforest the dense jungles and expose enemy positions, Agent Orange caused unspeakable damage, not just to the landscape, but to the people who came into contact with it. It wasn't just the soldiers who suffered. Thousands of innocent civilians, including children, were exposed to this deadly toxin, leading to horrific birth defects, cancers, and long-term health issues that would plague generations. The impact of Agent Orange still resonates in Vietnam today, a silent legacy of a war that continues to cause harm. But perhaps one of the most shocking truths of the Vietnam War lies in the psychological toll it took on those who fought. While the physical brutality is often documented, what history overlooks is the profound mental damage soldiers faced. Nightmares, PTSD, and a sense of abandonment haunted many soldiers long after they returned home. Drug addiction became rampant among returning veterans, many of whom turned to heroin or other substances to cope with the horrors they had witnessed. The war didn't end for them when they left Vietnam. For too many, it never truly ended at all. It wasn't just the men who fought in the jungles and villages who suffered. The war left emotional scars on both sides, with families torn apart and entire communities forced to rebuild from the ashes of destruction. The brutal moments weren't confined to the battlefield. They stretched into the aftermath, as the psychological wounds of war persisted long after the last shots were fired. Lee Fritter speaks about the risks for their children and their families from the aftermath of the war, with possible perils lurking directly in the background of Civil War films and movies about the war. The Vietnam War is remembered for its iconic moments, heroic stories of resistance, the rise of protest movements, and the controversial decisions made by leaders. But it's also a story of untold brutality. The dark chapters that many would prefer to forget are often the ones that define the real cost of war. So the next time you think you know everything about the Vietnam War, remember this: there's always more beneath the surface. The brutality, the suffering, and the forgotten stories are just as important as the victories and the triumphs. If this video opened your eyes to the untold stories of the Vietnam War, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the forgotten moments of history. Until next time, remember, the true cost of war is never fully understood until we look beyond the headlines.